Web3 Unpacked is proudly published by ARC, a leading design consultancy. ARC specializes in Web 2.0 and 3.0 strategy, design, branding, creative content development, and content marketing. We help companies ensure that their brand and business remain differentiated and competitive in a rapidly evolving digital landscape. To learn more, please visit arctai.com.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Rich Pasqua, and this is Web3 Unpacked. And today we have the privilege of speaking with Andrea Berry, Head of Business Development of Theta, a decentralized video network powered by users and an innovative new blockchain. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Rich. Excited to be here.
We were chatting before we jumped on here, and really interesting platform. There are a few out there in the Web3 space, but really after digging into your white paper a little bit, this is really quite robust, and there's a lot of features and functionality that we're going to definitely get into. But before we do that, I want to know a little bit more about you, and what got you into this, and a little bit about your background.
Sure. So let's see, I started my career actually working for the NBA. So that was like my first taste of media, entertainment, and workflow of media, of like video, audio recordings, interviews. And being from the Silicon Valley, I've always been obsessed with tech and trying new things. And so it was at the NBA, I was working for the Denver Nuggets, that I learned that I kind of had a knack for this thing, and I was always trying new things to help solve problems. So it's hard not to go down the ins and outs of that because it's really nerdy, interesting to me. But ultimately, that experience drove me back home to the Bay Area to get into technology formally and on the media tech side of the industry. And so I joined a company called Kaltura. It was the first open source video platform. And there it just blew my mind. And I was really inspired by the open source approach to technology and the ecosystem that it can provide, but specifically around video. And a mentor gave me great advice then that, if you stick to something, if you're not an engineer, if you stick to one area of expertise, you become more valuable, your job becomes more enjoyable, and it becomes about relationships. And so I stuck around in video. I've been at various video platforms, including Quello Media streaming services, which originally started as Quello Concerts. So it was the first music streaming platform for music videos, concerts, documentaries. They started streaming at the same time as Netflix. And funny enough, they were a customer of mine at Kaltura. So I went and helped the CEO of Quello white label the back end of that streaming platform, and we sold it to other businesses to use as their own streaming platform. From there, I went to Vimeo and I worked on their enterprise team focused on OTT, over-the-top delivery. So the concept of video on demand, like direct to consumer without going through cable top set boxes. And then, at Vimeo actually is when I met with Mitch, the CEO. At the time it was Sliver TV. And we laugh about this now, but he was kind of, saying like, are you interested in joining? But I had, really just started at Vimeo and I was committed, and I said, I'm rooting for you. I really like what you guys are doing. At the time they had built their decentralized CDN. So the company started as Sliver TV, which was like a competitor to Twitch, which is now our Theta TV product. And by delivering 4K video and 360 video to VR headsets from these e-gaming tournaments, it was really complicated and the delivery was terrible. So we decided to build a decentralized CDN, a peer-to-peer network. And so I told Mitch, I love what they're doing. Jokes on me because I kind of rolled my eyes at the time like, oh boy, that's a big mountain to climb. And years later, I was interviewing again, and the same friend who introduced us said, oh, why don't you talk to Theta? And I was like, who's Theta? And they said, that's Sliver TV. And by the way, they hit a $15 billion market cap at the height of the market. And I was like, I sure enough went, looked at the most latest white paper at the time. And I was like, Oh my God, they did it. And they did so much more. They went and then built their own native blockchain. So they built one of the first proof of stake blockchain companies, blockchain period, really. And it has a video API. It has this focus on media and entertainment, and very different from other blockchains. I mean, at the time it was proof of stake that was so different. But now what I would say is proof of stake is more common, is that Theta has this edge store. So the idea of this CDN, decentralized storage and streaming solutions, transcoding, et cetera, it really is a whole picture of solutions for media and entertainment. So I guess that's my word vomit, whole, kind of career, but how I got to Theta. And I'll stop there to give it to you to, which part you want to dig into more.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of interesting little bits and pieces in there. One of which was open source. I recently had a conversation with a friend who's like, hey, we were talking about new technology and what do you think of this, and Apple and Samsung, whatever. And, I'm like, oh, I'm a blockchain guy. I'm kind of full tilt with this stuff. And, 2.0 will be 2.0. There are lots of walled gardens. And I said, I'm much like yourself, Andrea. You mentioned it before. You're interested in open source. I said, that's how things are kind of done these days. And you have to kind of recruit armies. And he's like, well, would you want a piece of software that is running in your car, or running your car, perhaps, as the brains, that is open source? I said, well, maybe not the proprietary brains or the ECU of it, but some of the entertainment portion. He's like, even that I wouldn't want to do it. It's like, it's different. There's all different validation models. Yeah. I think a little bit of reliability, but very much a security issue. It should be a security issue for anyone. Um, but it is. There are checkpoints, and we work with a lot of exactly. So we work with a lot of different dApps and protocols, and they have pretty stringent security and quality checks all throughout the whole process.
That are transparent, at least at some level, right?
Exactly. It's transparent. Third parties can come in and evaluate if they want. So it is, it's like the whole, the church and the cathedral type of discussion. Great book, by the way, if you haven't read it.
Yeah. And I'll share this too, because I know not all of your listeners are super technical, but the first idea that I did go back to when I started to learn about blockchain is like, oh, well, Kaltura and the open source nature is, look at Wikipedia. Like, I remember when Wikipedia was like, considered a blog post, or like what we would say a blog post is today. You can't rely on that. It's not credible. But now with time, with numbers, with, the army of contributors and checks and balances, like, it's a modern day encyclopedia. And I think open source is the same type of nature. It's like, if you're not technical, but you understand the concept of Wikipedia, it's the same type of ideology, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. And those types of checks and balances are being dripped into the whole development, not even dripped, it's poured into it, into the whole, front end, back end development world of Web3. Really interesting. So yeah, I mean, it's all happening. And it's interesting you brought up Wikipedia, because I'm like, wow, Wikipedia probably could benefit from the idea of using a DAO, right? Oh, really? Wow. All right. No, it seems like we should be at the same cocktail parties, but because I think about this stuff a lot, and it comes up a lot. And even when I'm talking, even though it's not, I didn't put any pre-thought into it, I'll talk to folks like yourself, and it's like, wow, that would be a good idea or good use case for DAOs. I think, people need to understand Web3 first.
Yes.
If you're have a stomach for it, jump into DAOs. I'm learning about it as you are. It's fascinating governance model.
Totally.
And it does have the power, if set up properly, to really create self-governing entities or environments.
And where it makes sense, too. I always like to call out every time, somebody may be listening to a conversation like this and we're onto something there. And that's very real. I also like to point out, as it suits the person issuing or setting this up, right? It's like, that's the biggest misconception I constantly am having with executives is once they understand one component of Web3, it kind of blankets and generalizes. So they're like, but I don't want my business to be self-governing. It's like, great, you don't need to. You don't have to have a DAO. Or, if I'm talking to a sports team and they're like, but I don't want my fans to decide how we're running the business. And I'm like, you don't have to, but wouldn't it be cool if they could vote on the jerseys they're wearing that night? Or, if it could be very silly. It could be what type of, themes of the night. It can be very silly. Or for Hollywood, it could be, should the actress wear a red dress or a blue dress in this scene? And that's, I spend a lot of time just reminding these executives, hey, peel it back a little bit. I'm glad you understand that specific use case, but you only have to do it that way if it suits your business or whatever, your model.
Yeah, all really good points. And it is this, especially when we're talking about the entertainment industry, sports that you brought up, I think is really prime for NFTs and all sorts of other stuff. You can, through NFTs and DAOs, even the simple passive DAO, it fosters engagement, right?
Right.
And it makes people more closer and attached to your brand or your product or your team. It's
that
super
direct
cool.
relationship. Well, I talked about it my whole career. Like, I've been trained on this as part of like selling strategies. So you need to own your audience, right? Like, especially at Vimeo, it was a white label solution. So different from the Vimeo that most people know, that we had this like Netflix in a box solution that you could come, and it was software as a service, and you could come upload your videos and basically launch your own branded Netflix in 90 days for under $100,000 across all these apps. And we would go to YouTubers, fitness instructors, churches, every kind of person who has a video library, and say, well, you don't own your audience on YouTube or Facebook. Like, what if they shut you down? Or what if whatever happens, how do you contact your followers to offer them new perks, to communicate with them, to add value, or even to tell you where your new channel is? You're not owning your audience. So we used to do that fear-driven model. But then when I joined Web3, I realized, well, that's similar to what Vimeo is doing or software as a service is doing. It's a step towards the right direction. But really, as a business owner, I'm at mercy of Vimeo owning that audience. And my relationship with them is constrained to the mold of Vimeo software. And so like Web3 is really a blank canvas. NFT specifically, or smart contracts, are just ways for you to have in my opinion, there's no more intimate relationship or direct relationship you can have with your consumer than via an NFT.
Yeah, absolute directness, peer-to-peer, whatever you want,
however you want to build.
B2C, however you want to call it, it's direct access. And I'm glad you brought it up, Andrea. The idea of very large, and I like YouTube, I like Netflix, just like everyone else.
They have value.
What? They have tons of value, and exactly where you're going, that value is really predicated on the collections that they put together of movies, documentaries, whatever they are. YouTube obviously being very open with its, any content goes, just about, obviously.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you have to fit into that mold. And you are subject to being turned off for, a curse word or, misconceptions or
demonetized even, right? Maybe you're not shut down, but because of whatever reason. And something that we learn from these creators, and I'm sure you're familiar with this too, is, one fitness instructor, I think his name is Millionaire Roy. He's a really inspiring entrepreneur, has a successful fitness business that he built from zero. And on YouTube, he said, every week I'm chasing an algorithm that's changing. I'm a fitness instructor. I want to focus on creative, my class, my members, that's what I want to focus on. That's my business. And yet YouTube has turned me into this like influencer in the wrong direction where I'm chasing an algorithm fitting their mold instead of focusing on what's best for my business and consumers. And I always remember that chase.
It's a really good point you bring up there, because having Web3 Unpacked, and I want to spin up other ones, but I am into marketing, and we do social, and we do all sorts of stuff through ARC, my company. But we're a small team, and we're constantly chasing new updates and this and that.
Yeah.
And how do you amplify your audience and, grow naturally, but in a swifter, cadence perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really challenging. And to your friend's point or the person you're talking about, the health instructor, it's two jobs. You can't just plug the camera in and go to a streaming, podcast service or yourself and just record and have fun and create tons of content. Mm-hmm. You have to worry about it. Like the video part is almost the easy part, right?
Yeah.
Creating the good, enjoyable content is challenging, of course, but then you have a whole other day and 2 days and 3 days of like, okay, what are they up to now? How does the algorithm work?
Yeah, what hashtags? It's like the platforms amplify. I think the latest one I read for Instagram was that you shouldn't be using more than 3 hashtags now. And it's like and Instagram versus TikTok, right? They all have different ones. But all this to say, you called out like they do have their value. And of course they do. And, it doesn't mean that you should go start your own streaming platform. One, you don't want to build one. But even if you did, the audiences are there. So there is value that there are audiences there, at least in today's world. It is interesting. Even that fitness instructor, when he did launch his successful, own Netflix branded, it was I believe it's still successful today. I think the question was posed like, okay, what do I do with my YouTube channel now? Implying like we should phase it out and shut it down. And I said, no, that's your free model. Then you have your paid version, right? So this is a funnel. You should be doing maybe first Friday's a free workout class or something. Capture the audience that's there. It's really a dark art, all of it. But this is all why I joined Web3 is it's less of a dark art. You're less dependent on all these third parties for technical monetization, everything. And what I realized, my big aha moment that just got me so excited to join Theta is Web3 is infrastructure for community. And infrastructure for community in a Web 2 world is abstract, vague. It's very difficult to prove ROI. That is a dark art.
Yeah. Yeah. And through Web3 and DAOs and other tools and technologies and dApps and APIs, you're going to be able to really take control over your data, like, a business's data. As a user, you'll be able to take control or ownership back. Right. And meter what you're sharing and perhaps get paid for it. You should be getting paid for it.
Right.
And
or some type of reward.
Absolutely. And Andrea, this comes up all the time, and we are no longer the batteries, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the changing of the tides. So now, the small fitness instructor, a small Web3 podcast or an entertainment podcast now can really take control over how they're making money and really take control over ownership of IP and the end product, right? Exactly.
Yeah. And the data, it reminds me again of these executive conversations that I have is, there is data that businesses want to be proprietary. And I have to peel that back again to say, while it feels like adopting Web3 is sacrificing control, it could, it can be in some areas of your business that you're used to. However, what that small sacrifice then entails is so much more rewarding and better for your business, even from if we want to be super corporate about it and just talk about the bottom line. I have to remind them that by allowing that direct access, you empower your consumers to be rewarded for their data sharing. That's loyalty. That's rewarding loyalty. And then you arguably have way more control than today, depending on cloud systems, paying vendors for data, and we feel robbed. Users, everybody wins in this scenario, like in Web3. I feel more empowered and in control of my privacy and data. I feel like I'm benefiting from what I'm giving up. The business and I have a better relationship. Nobody's depending on these third parties, and I don't feel like my privacy is being breached. I trust my company more, the company.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a tighter relationship with the brand or the company to the end user. And I think as I talk to folks like you and others and friends and colleagues and whatnot, I'm like, why? What is the big hurdle with Web3? And I truly believe there are people, out there like us that we understand a lot of it and we're continuing to learn. There are people that know a tremendous amount and will still reject it. And
True.
There are people that just are learning and they're not sure, they just write it off or whatnot. So there is this hump that we're trying to get over, and this is the adoption hump, right? When you and I talk, it's very natural. It's like, it's trust.
Yes.
It's direct to consumer, literally. It's using networks and whether it be edge networks or just decentralized networks to pull people in and out and use nodes as validators and whatnot.
Right.
It just makes really, really sense. And then you all shrouded in cryptography, which is theoretically hack proof. And, very, very secure. So what is the problem, right? So for me, and I'm sure I know this is like one of those cocktail,
No, it's good.
Andrea cocktail stories.
I like it.
Yeah, sipping a glass of wine. But, I truly believe people are starting to understand, some of them in government and other agencies are playing dumb because they know the middleman is going away. They know
the irony of that. I know. Right.
They know theft is going away. Right?
Well, and for all the fears, and I'm overgeneralizing a little bit, but for all the fears that and skepticism that people are misinformed on with blockchain, the irony, AI included, the irony is it's the solution for all the fears that you're describing. It's like sometimes it makes my head hurt depending on how stubborn the person is. But I would say that's my day-to-day job, is demystifying Web3 to anyone from my Uber driver to studio executives.
I would I wholeheartedly agree with that. A good portion of my day is taken up by just explaining it. Or, hey, here's an idea. Maybe we can implement this. And how would that work? And other people like that are more technical than me maybe have to educate sideways to me. And that's the way it's done. But you're 100% right. There is this, if you look who's rejecting it, major finance, some major finance, others are institutional investors are piling in now. So that's a good sign.
Yes.
Because they know they need to diversify. Is the NASDAQ and other means of investing going away? Absolutely not. And I don't want to see that go away personally. But there are new models. There are new ways to do things that are more direct.
That solve real problems.
Right.
Whether how serious that problem is, there's this whole spectrum. But you did ask, the problem, and I have this theory. I don't know. It's like just more so growing up in the Silicon Valley. My grandfather was a rocket scientist, And so I grew up with like the first computers. I can type 100 words a minute because of all this, stuff he always exposed me to. But, my dad was in technology sales. So I think that's why I have this little knack or curiosity. But I saw growing up in the Silicon Valley, the evolution of the cloud. And I can remember the day that someone was teaching me about the cloud. I think it was my dad. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm never going to really have to know this. Like, I was getting ready for an interview and I was like, okay, just conceptual. But here I am. I know it pretty well. Definitely more than the average person. But even everybody, maybe even my grandma, my nonna, she conceptually understands what the cloud is. She may not be right, but she's like, yeah, all my stuff is up there. But that's something, right? And I think that what Mark Zuckerberg has done, and we'll use him as the point shoot person to blame, but exactly. But he screwed us of our privacy, our data. He took advantage. He misled us and he lied to us. And, however you want to slice up whatever, but he really taught everybody to be wary of technology and not trust technology. And so I think in the cloud evolution, those social platforms are bad actors in the cloud world of data, privacy, and what now boomers can even understand of like, oh, Facebook is misusing my data and they feel that their privacy is invaded. I think because of that, in a nutshell, is why people are overly skeptical about Web3 and are asking more questions than they ever would because they didn't ask questions before they downloaded Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, and they didn't know what questions to ask. And the irony is Web3 solves this. So while I love to see the curiosity and like people want to be more, I want my mom to ask more questions, and things like that. The irony is like, it just like makes my head hurt a little bit because blockchain is the solution, but I can't answer that to somebody like that because that gets really in the weeds of privacy and blockchain and decentralization. I have to start at the basics and go to examples of social apps or Netflix to, educate them and then paint that picture of why it's better.
Yeah. I mean, how do you explain zero trust to someone? Like zero trust.
Right.
There's both parties are.
It sounds too good to be true.
It sounds too good to be true, but if it's done properly, it really, really works. And to your point, every time I turn on the news or a financial show or this, and they're griping about something, I'm like, blockchain solves that. I don't know where you've been. It really does. Look it up. Maybe get involved.
Right.
But it is a very interesting time. And I think the idea of trusting things in the cloud and, I don't even Google stuff. Sometimes I see it just automatically flowing into the cloud and I panic because I don't want anything in the cloud anymore. It's almost a dirty word.
So hard because we live in a cloud world.
Yeah. Everything is SaaS and that's it, right?
And
you almost have no choice.
Yeah. A lot of, I'm thinking of different types of profiles, but one that comes up a lot is, the Theta community is very strong and very inspiring. A lot of them are technical, a lot of them are not, which is very interesting. But sometimes I get criticism to say, why hasn't, basically why isn't every platform using blockchain, and why aren't we fast forward to my opinion 15 years from now, where we live in a blockchain first world? And it's like, because you don't just whiplash into something new. Like there's a lean in, there's an evolution. And that's my job, is like Web 2.5. And we integrate with cloud solutions as needed for our clients. We integrate with whatever solution that they don't want to change. And we'll take a piece that solves a problem, because then it's strategy and you earn their trust. And that's really, we can get into our NFT marketplace if you want to get into some more entertainment use cases. But that's been a huge strategy for our NFT marketplace, is to work with enterprises, solve a specific problem with their consumer relationship or marketing via NFTs. We go in and we learn and earn their trust, learn their business, earn their trust, and then they're willing to have a more in-depth conversation or introduce their CTO. And we're not just somebody that they just met on the street. We're a partner. We've proven ourselves, right? And like, that's part of the demystifying stage. And anyways, now I'm going on this rant, but it's like, that's the type of conversion. I think like even some blockchain engineers will at conferences will like really preach to me and like, you need to be all Web3. And I'm like, but how can you get on somebody's phone being a completely Web3 solution? That's actually impossible today, unless you want to build a new phone. You know, that's hard, where I'm like, I think a lot of these conversations, we don't leave room for the lean in moment where it's like, it's okay if they don't get everything. Let's just get the newbies to understand one piece and then we build from there.
Yeah. And well put, because we often use the term 2.5, and it's actually really important for people to understand that 99.9% of Web3 dApps or applications or whatnot protocols all use a 2 or 2.5 interface to get to Web3, to
The
get
whole
to
end-to-end
the security,
product.
to
Right.
end-to-end product. You need that. How it operates on a phone down the road via the web is another thing. How, you know, there's now specialized hardware coming out.
Right.
You know, phones that are.
I'm so excited for that phase.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Solana phone, super hot on that idea. Totally a Web3, rooted in Web3 hardware and software phone. I think it's taking a little bit longer for them to release the initial phones, but I'm very excited for it, and I'm glad they're working on stuff like that.
Yeah. When I hear about things like that, I mean, I'm one of 4 kids. I'm very resourceful. I'm like the diplomat. You know, I'm third of 4. So that's all things that come naturally to me, but that's like the part of my job I like and that I'm good at. And when, you know, I hear things like that, sometimes I'm wondering, why not? It's not easy by any means, but why not find existing company that with market share and you know, get who have all the users, who have the experience of building and maintaining hardware, which is a very difficult competitive business. Could swallow you whole if you go in the you know, if you go out on your own in one direction. This applies to really any business. Instead of kind of taking the steps and of leveraging what already exists out there, you could cease to exist very quickly. Like I always think of, you know, Disney and Netflix and this evolution of streaming, and these media companies then became technology companies. And so many, like we call it like, some people in the industry, like my friends, and I will call it like the OTT graveyard. So all these streaming platforms or even B2B streaming solutions that cease to exist because they left their focus as a media and creative company to try to say, oh, I could just do that. I could become a video infrastructure company. And they didn't realize that's a whole business in itself. And to be both is very difficult. And anyways, that's like a whole other perspective. But, you know, I think with Web3, the beauty of Web3 is you don't have to do it all. You can take and use what pleases you and shed it and move on and use something else as you want for your business.
Yeah, and I think there's huge change coming.
Yes.
It's just once people really jump the chasm and they realize, oh, wow, I can do this and that, and I don't have to sign away my life and my data in these T's and C's over and over again with different disparate types of things, you'll be able to aggregate and cultivate your own communities and or services as you like, and maybe pay or contribute as you use those networks.
That's both on the consumer side and the B2B side too.
Exactly.
Like that's where my brain goes. It's so fun it's like almost maestro to be the job of like, okay, how are we resourceful? What relationships and partnerships make sense for us now? What's some in the future that are goals? You know, it's like, Web3 is infrastructure for community, but it's relationships. So it can bridge together solutions so easy. And then on the consumer side, like you're saying, it's the same thing. Like you are completely empowered to be rewarded for your behavior as a consumer and to use what makes sense for you, not because you have to, because there's no other solution or this is the only one that fits.
I would imagine, Andrea, that especially for someone like you who are literally opening the first doors to a relationship, right? And you're going through that door with a partner or client, whoever they are, small, medium, large video platform, entertainment platform, whatever they are. And day one right now is one relationship. And knowing that you guys are actually putting the blocks in place for 10 years down the road,
right?
I would imagine those relationships will just migrate, just escalate and become.
You nailed it. And I would say that's really been my video career and why I feel like, I think Mitch and my CEO both agree this is why it's a good fit for me, is that I was able to bring my relationships from a Web2 video world into Web3. And, I just had a conversation with a mentor of mine that was my sales engineer at Kaltura, so many years ago. And he came and saw me speak at the National Association of Broadcasters show in Las Vegas. Hundreds of thousands of people go. It's broadcasting. It's traditional. I mean, now there's all these streaming solutions, but last year when I went, there was a little group of that huddled together about Web3. This year, there was actually booths for Web3, more of a presence, right? But when I started my career, they didn't even have any streaming solutions. Now there's a whole hall. So I see the same thing happening. But my friend, Brad, he came and saw me spoke, and he just sent me his text the other day because he said, when, you told me you were joining the blockchain company, I was worried about it for you, to be honest. But I knew that you're very smart and that you're not going to take something lightly. So there's obviously a reason. He's like, so when I came and saw you speak at NAB, you've completely converted me. He's like, I still have a lot of skepticism in certain areas, which I think he's right. He should. There are areas that are underdeveloped. This isn't something I expect anyone to just jump in with 2 feet and believe it's the solution for everything. Today, it's not, for a lot of reasons. But Brad, I just felt like that was the highlight of my week, to say that now he's writing articles and op-eds about community and real-time fan engagement. And he's like, I realize Web3's infrastructure for engagement, which is so critical for media and entertainment.
Yeah, that's a great story. And it's funny because, years of going to South by Southwest and Cannes and all that stuff, there's no one talking. And people who go to Cannes are like, Rich, you should have been there. You would have dominated.
Yeah.
You would have talk on any topic on Web3 and you would have been, complete
This year
rock
there
star.
was some presence. I don't know if you saw, but we did MetaCan, and we did a pop-up Netflix essentially. And we partnered with the Film 3 group, The Squad. And they did an in real life event at Cannes and a speaking session. And it was really exciting. And then virtually we hosted essentially a pop-up Netflix for 2 weeks with award-winning films that they curated and brought these filmmakers together on. And we sold a pass on thetadrop.com for $30. And each film was matched with panel discussions like you would at a real festival. And it was cool. You could buy it with a credit card and you got access. It unlocked it. And we loved it because it showcased NFT digital rights management, which we have a patent for. But that's a use case I'm so excited about because you can't share a password in that scenario. You get to monetize directly. I'm so eager and focused on having these streaming platforms or anybody with content start adopting NFTs as an authentication layer.
Oh, yeah.
So anyways, go on. You said Cannes, and then I got really excited that we're starting to get some notoriety and from these traditional festivals and events that, Web3 is here and it can solve a lot of our problems.
100%. Absolutely. And I don't want to divert from Theta, the product, but we're on this interesting role here. And I'm interested from you is all right, Hollywood
Yeah.
and the Writers Guild and SAG and everyone's on strike, right?
Yeah,
For me, that's a very, very tenuous situation for Hollywood.
absolutely. And it's
Beyond,
getting more every day.
yeah, it's now becoming a real,
They're both.
everyone's talking about it, right? So
I know. Yeah.
now, because I talk to folks like you and Macroverse and Adam from Macroverse we had on last week, which was really interesting, and it's almost like Web3 folks are going, okay, that's great, go on strike. We're going to keep creating really great content.
Right.
We've got
Content and solutions.
A couple of red cameras. We've got nice audio studio. We can do whatever we want. We didn't break the bank doing it. And we're gonna create movies. We're gonna create shorts. We're gonna create documentaries, comic books, whatever they're doing, and they're doing it. And I think once they rotate and people start to rotate their minds a little bit and they go, oh, you mean we don't really have to be in a union? I mean, it does help to get work and for benefits and rights and all the good stuff that a union would supply an individual or a group of people. But now people can really just, you could start a studio. Just start a studio and do what you need to do.
This is what I tell a lot of creators is you're a studio, you're a business. You're not just a creator with all the respect in the world. I mean that. And this Film 3 group, actually, I'll have to send you some more information on them. It's really interesting. I met them about a year ago at their first Film 3 summit. And it's an ecosystem of filmmakers, directors, writers, creators, actors, but also technology solutions. So like Decentralized Pictures, which is a Roman Coppola company who is using Web3 infrastructure as a solution in a new way. And, Bingeable Tech, the CEO, Stephen Murray, is a marketing and amplification platform using Web3 for filmmakers so that they can get the royalties and rights management. I mean, there's so many, but what's so exciting of right now, seeing it in real time with the strikes, is that, they continue to fight, and it's brutal. It's shocking. It's jaw dropping, and it gets more crazy each day. And Film 3 group is here saying there's a path. Like, let's, you could keep fighting and dwindle down, and it's going to be like Stephen Murray yesterday. I saw him. He said, yeah, it's just going to be a shinier piece of shit at the end of the day, like at best. Or we could go down this new path, and there's companies, people, creators who are doing it right now, like you're saying, specifically for this type of medium of art. Come this way, like let's go down this new path. And the union piece is something I've been studying just because I'm fascinated by this, that, not to replace them, but how do you add Web3 infrastructure so that they have even more of its proper weight and power that they should? Yeah.
All really good points. And this is like the turning of the tides. This is the way I think of it. And people are either, jumping in head first, some small amounts of people, and others are dipping their toes in, and that's okay. And that's perfectly fine. But this stuff is going to change. And once the audience shifts, the studios are going to have to shift. I mean, look at the numbers of Disney and some of the other, big media companies. It doesn't look so hot for whatever reason.
A lot.
Oh, I know you do.
And the loss of a subscriber, and that Disney could lose 4 million subscribers in a quarter, and it's just like
that's
no big deal. Or Netflix could lose 1 million, and I get so pissed off at Netflix because I love Netflix, and I grew up next door to Los Gatos, where they're headquartered, and such an innovative company then now is falling back and adding ads and just becoming one of the rest. I mean, there's ways to criticize Netflix, don't get me wrong, especially with the strike, and they're part of the problem. However, at its inception, for them to add advertising instead of trying something like a membership over a subscription, or like, using an NFT. And if the lifetime value of a customer is, let's just say, like $1,000, what if they sold a lifetime membership for $5,000? A limited quantity, and you got front of the line at Comic-Con. Maybe you watch Stranger Things the night before. All things that don't cost them more money. It's not inventing a new business or loyalty program. It's just being resourceful and giving value and rewards back to these fans. Like, that changes the conversation of churn, turns it upside down, solves password sharing. It's like driving me crazy over here.
Yeah.
Like, why not put your toe in in a risk adverse way before you're adding ads and charging us for ads? That just gets me crazy.
They didn't get creative. You got to get
No.
creative with the stuff in business. I'm
And
not talking
even
about
ads are
movies.
Right. And what I learned at Vimeo, because Vimeo did not support ads, notoriously.
I like
There's
it.
a whole conversation there. But they didn't, and they, it's much easier to build $1 million business with a small group of paying subscribers than it is with advertising. And that's a fact. Like, advertising, just putting ads on something, you need eyeballs, you need a lot of marketing spend, and you need consistently marketing spend to get those eyeballs to make the revenue worthwhile. So I don't think this advertising model for Netflix, I mean, look, the numbers are there, so it's going to be something substantial, but by no means is it solving anything, and definitely isn't solving password sharing.
One of the other things you just brought up, Andrea, was advertising, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to see it. I think we're going to see it first on the content side with the Netflixes and the YouTubes and other streaming networks and whatnot first.
Yes.
But the advertising models, they don't, like the DSP model, the ad serving, all those networks that have been literally faucets of money for a small amount of people are going to change. They have to change. And they actually are in a 2.5 way right now.
I'm
under
excited.
The radar. Yes, I'll have to send you some. I definitely have to send you someone's info. She's the CMO of this company, and I will definitely turn you on to her and to the company, a decentralized ad serving network. That's
the timing could not be more perfect. If data communities listening, they're going to have a field day with any kind of nuggets I give, but there is something I'm working on in the background too, because I'm very fascinated by how Web3 will disrupt advertising. Now it's like almost shark infested waters, in my humble opinion, because as you may find a company or solution, new or traditional, who could benefit from Web3, there's a lot of powerful people and companies that don't want transparency in advertising for many reasons. And they're companies who have bought companies to bury them. It's like very powerful because transparency, like there's a lot of fraud that's happening in advertising. And, we have awesome, like our some partner Replay, they own Rewarded TV, and it's a watch to earn model, and it's advertising and paid, it's all kinds of models that it includes, transactional as well. You can curate your library with NFTs. And they come from OTT traditional companies, and they're really interesting, intelligent builders, respected in this space. That's cool. One of their competitors, though, I heard speak on a podcast recently, and they said, like, you could leave the TV on all day and you could we can give you tokens for that, from the advertisers. And this is I was listening because it's a competitor to our customer. And I was like, I can't believe the CEO just said that. That's fraud, right? And so it's like all these people are manipulating advertising. They're on the wrong side. And then you have other people who are building real solutions, like our customer Rewarded TV, that is, offering incentivized behavior, but they're not telling you let your TV run. In fact, like they can, if it goes idle, just like if I let Netflix run too long, it needs to stop, right? And anyways, that's like a whole other podcast, but that is so fascinating to me. And if you can start making change where the money is, that's where mass adoption is going to happen.
Yeah, and it's going to start with the users too, because to your point, 100%, a lot of these very powerful media execs and investors and whoever they are, will gobble up all the small folks as long as they possibly can to keep the 2.0 model going. Because the 2.0 model, yeah, it's control. Another word, perfect. We're totally on the same page, because the one word that actually comes up a lot for me and for others in the Web3 space and on this podcast is control. Government control, the central bank digital coin. What is that going to do? Well, it's definitely going to make your life easier in the sense that you'll be able to transact quicker, right? Okay, great. But you will also have a permanent record of everything you've purchased, every place you're going. It's surveillance. It's a surveillance coin. That's just me, my personal opinion. Take it for what it's worth. And it's how, and the central banks are like befuddled by all this stuff, because it's like, oh, we're going to have to give up now. Well, you don't have to give up.
You could be stronger adopting in it. That's what's mind-boggling to me. You could have the most competitive edge, arguably, in the world by embracing it. There's a silly analogy here. So when I worked in the NBA, I interviewed whoever had the best game on the visiting team on a cassette player. Then I'd go play it for my team. We'd type it out and fax it to ESPN, USA Today. They'd use my quote in their paper. Not as Andrea Berry, just like Associated Press. But I read this book and I wish I could remember, but it was during this time where like they didn't, now there's rules, like you can't tweet during halftime. And it was at the same time that NFL players were getting Twitter, and NFL, I don't know if you remember, they banned Twitter. And that was stupid, because I can go say not Andrea Berry, right, on my Twitter handle, or have a pseudo name. And this woman wrote about it, and she said, if it's a solution and something people like, you're never going to control it. And in fact, if you even try to control it, you will fail miserably, and you'll be worse off than if you just let it go unregulated. And so if you have to lean in, you have to have regulation, you have to have parameters. And what she said was, before they introduced the parameters, and they did, and it worked, and as worked as it could, but like you can't, it's inevitable change. It's like marijuana solves like medical problems. People enjoy it. You're not going, in my opinion, you're not going to be able to control that and say, no, ban it. You're only inducing the illegal side of it by doing so. And so I think a lot of that just applies to blockchain tokens, and it's a fine line, and I don't have the answers. I just think it's a fascinating realization. These corporations and government needs to realize that it's here. It's not going anywhere. And the more you want to fight it, you're going to be worse off than if you even just let it alone.
Yeah. And let go. We say this about to brands all the time. You have to let go for people to trust you even more, right? The government will never let go. It's all about control. Again, control.
I know. Well, it's ironic, because with what blockchain, they could have more control in theory, right?
Yeah.
It's so depending on how, but that's why I'm also passionate about so many, what my work is like, I just want good people and ethical people to embrace and understand this technology at a faster pace than the people who will misuse it. That's like what motivates me every day. So if we can do that before the effed up government and institutions that do take advantage of us today, then I think we're in good shape. It's a dance.
Yeah, it's definitely a balance, and getting that balance right is going to take years, many years.
Totally.
And people will wake up, and I think they are.
Yeah.
To this media, what I would call, I don't even know, it's social war that's going on currently.
Definitely.
The bifurcation of this country and many others.
And information.
Information, right? And what can you have and what you can't you have, and what's regulated. And, I look at Elon Musk, and I'm like, damn, what were you thinking, buddy? And then he does what he does, and not everyone likes it. But when you take a step back, and it's like, wow, he's really trying to keep this platform as free as possible. barring any kind of, anti-Semitic language or, hate language or anything else like that. He's really trying to keep it open and free from tons and tons of regulations and rules and all this stuff, which, it's a huge challenge. But he seems to be doing it, and some people are like, F you, I'm no longer on the platform. I don't like you. I don't like what you're doing.
Yeah,
well,
I think...
Ask yourself why you don't like what he's doing.
Yeah, and I think there's ways to argue it in every which way. I think for progress, if for progress he makes, there's also sacrifices that are happening that are up for question. Is it worth the sacrifice? At the end of the day, he's the CEO. And I think what is interesting is, I'm thinking out loud in real time, so I feel a little vulnerable. But, I worked for a famous billionaire, and it was fascinating. I learned a lot. And I've had relationships, like business relationships with other billionaires, and I think it's fascinating. And at the end of the day, CEOs in general are wild and crazy, and it takes a personality to be a CEO. But like a CEO of a company like that, I don't think Jack Dorsey was so innocent. I don't think but we have a lot of transparency and exposure to what Elon's doing, where this is happening at probably every major Web2 company, definitely at the social ones and media facing ones. And I saw it at Vimeo firsthand. In fact, the CEO of Vimeo just had, she was let go finally, or she left. I'm not sure what the public message is, but she's gone, and she's now at Tubi, which is the Fox version of Pluto TV. But, that's so interesting. Even at Vimeo, I saw the corporate structure, how we're thinking about creators, but what we're publicly saying. It's not fun. It's not great. But a lot of these Web2 companies operate at these, anyways, all this to bring back what Elon's doing, no matter what your opinion is, it's happening way more often. Even the critics, I want to tell you, it's this stuff's happening everywhere at Web2.
It's, they're kind of eating each other, and it's...
Well, and it's like a central point of power of a vertically integrated system. It's this is how it's going to work. And we have to build a new way if you don't like it.
Yeah. And, at the risk of sounding, utopian, if you will, with Web3, it really, it's not everything, and it's not a religion. It's not a business model. It's just a new way of transacting or connecting with people.
Yeah, and it's new infrastructure.
Exactly. It's not everything can run like, a Fortune 500 company or the military for that matter.
Right.
There are other ways to do it where people are just simply can choose their level of involvement. You may want to be a camper and just kind of observe, or you want to be really involved in helping to make decisions or, offering creative ideas to propel the brand or the media company that you really like and now trust. It's again, they need to get over it, and it'll happen slowly. And it's interesting, you brought up Jack Dorsey, and I'm in hindsight, it really makes sense, because why did he jump and go 100% to Square, right? Mm-hmm. Because he's turning Square into most likely a full-on Web3, tokenized type of platform.
You democratize payments for small businesses, right?
There you go.
Consumers with small businesses.
And again, this is my opinion, my thinking here. I think he left Twitter because he literally could not push the board to go in that direction. Yeah, it's a mess.
Oh, sure. Right? Yeah.
So
there's
I think these fights are happening, right? So
yeah, it is interesting. I read something probably on Reddit last night that, it's leaked from Twitter that Elon's turning it into a microtransaction platform. So I think he has a vision for that too. I try not to get caught up in it because it's so consuming, and my energy and brain power is better spent on what I'm doing.
I find this all very fascinating because I was in a situation, I ran, I'm not going to bring up the name, but I ran product for, I was CXO for a very large publisher, very large. And they had a host of brands underneath, a major umbrella that's been around forever. And I brought up the idea over and over again is like, let's try and do something different. And it's called micro. This is 7 or 8 years ago. Micropayments. They're like, what the hell is that? I said, instead of subscriptions, people can, it's like the, Brave browser, BAT token.
Sure.
You gave me your eyeballs for a couple of ads. I'm going to give you some tokens. Oh, and by the way, you can reward team members on our staff and writers and whoever else you want.
Right. Whatever you want to incentivize the behavior around.
Or you can cash them out, convert it to Ethereum or Bitcoin or whatever you want to do. And it just went right over. And you know what? That's actually going to happen. The paywalls will be dropped. Eventually the paywalls will be dropped. And then users will, I think publishers will be really surprised at the level of engagement users will have.
I know,
and what they're willing to offer for a great article, for a great documentary,
or
for
first access or whatever it is. Consumers are willing to pay. It's what's so funny about the Netflix model is you're adding a new revenue stream with advertising. But like, there are people on Netflix who would pay maybe even $100, but definitely pay something to watch Stranger Things all at once or the night before. And that's a great marketing engine. Like, it's just fascinating to me that they are so rigid and vanilla with their revenue streams, where it's like, you're not maximizing on the super fans and the fans who are willing to give Netflix more money for just nothing. They don't need to invent anything new. They just need to, unlock or window content differently.
Yeah. And having worked with tons of publishers in the past, and if you're getting millions and millions of page views and or downloads or whatever it may be for your content, it's really, and I used to do this all the time. We would A/B test certain subscription models, certain advertising methodologies and models and designs and layouts and whatnot. And we can do it in an hour and get like instant results.
Right.
They can do the same thing. And it just chalks it up to them not being, not just Netflix, but many other companies that are so-called big tech companies are not innovation companies. And that's okay, but you still need to push the needle.
Right. And mitigate risk and test. Otherwise you fall behind, you become the blockbuster. And I think Netflix added games. I'll leave my criticism of that specifically aside. But, there's a lot of buzz in the industry like, oh, that will be the next wave. And that's what all these platforms are going to do. And they're not gaming companies. They're entertainment, like film, movie, TV, streaming service. But they're studios. They're not gaming companies. There are gaming companies that exist. So unless they partner with like a Riot Games or something crazy, to me, it just doesn't make sense. Like, your games are never going to be to the standard that they need. But I do think that gamification of content and interactivity is what will happen next. Now, they should be using Web3 if they want to do it successfully and safely for their business and margins. But I don't think it's going to be like playing an arcade game in Netflix. There could be an element of that, but that's not going to move the needle in their quarterly calls. I do think those microtransactions, incentivizing behavior that increases engagement, and you gamify that experience, whether it's earning or whatever it is, that will be, I think, what is going to be the next wave of problem solving or excitement in the streaming space. Strikes and drama today aside, just pretending like that is a separate thing.
And you bring up a lot of good points there, Andrea. And one brings me to the idea of like, you're not a gaming company, right? So why do that? Now we're going to jump back to Mr. Zuckerberg again, because it's just so,
I love it.
so easy.
It is. It's too easy.
By the way, you're not the metaverse, even though you rebranded Meta, which you tried to co-opt the name. That burns me 10 times over.
Totally.
Every day. Very annoying, but you're not a gaming company. You're not an experience company, truly, right? Yes, you offer Facebook and Instagram,
even when
which
they did have games, it was Zynga. It was the gaming companies. In fact, my founder, CEO, Mitch, one of his first big successes was a gaming company that was a game on Facebook, but it wasn't Facebook's game. It was a developer community. Like, right. They were just, it was a connecting point. It was an API. Like, they weren't the gaming. So just for all your critics who are going to say, well, actually Facebook had crazy games. It wasn't Facebook who built those games.
Oh, those are all indie. They create a pool of games and then they license them out, rightfully so. So it brings me to the idea again with Mr. Zuckerberg here. You're not the metaverse. No one is the metaverse. And if you wanted to pick a close winner, not a winner, I shouldn't say, someone or an entity, a leader or a potential leader would be Microsoft. Microsoft is not a gaming company, technically, but they own 22 plus gaming companies, studios.
Exactly. Right.
So they're poised. And to me, the metaverse is...
It's a very good perspective.
Yeah. The metaverse is not Xbox, PlayStation.
There's billions of metaverses, potentially. There are. It's like a galaxy.
Exactly. I like to often use that term. It's a galaxy. And then Xbox is a planet, or PlayStation's a planet, or Roblox is a planet, or whatever it is.
Right.
It's the connected tissue between these. The communication connective tissue between the planets is the metaverse, right? No one's done that yet. No one. Yeah. Some people are working on it, but and just the idea of thinking, don't reinvent an industry. Just kind of either get involved, invite people in, and or start to accumulate these.
Well, in any good company, like Netflix was a DVD company first, and then they started to lean into streaming, but they didn't just whiplash into becoming, and Netflix has their own technology stack, but earlier on they were using a lot of vendors to make their technology stack because it mitigated risk. So it's the same concept, but Web3, like I was saying about the business development and partnerships and opportunity, it's endless, because if we build a connecting point or a bridge with a solution or whatever it might be, we can use it as we need. And when we're done with it, we're done with it. We're not in a 10-year contract. We're not in, that this Web2 world, once you have a partnership, it's a marriage, and whether you like it or not, you're stuck kind of a thing. Web3 offers like, okay, I'm going to use you now because that suits my business. Tomorrow it doesn't. Thank you. See you later. I'm moving on and building it myself, or moving to the next best solution that I'm going to use.
And that actually brings something up very interesting in the developer community, where when Terra Luna kind of pancaked a year and a half ago to almost 2 years ago, the developers were screwed. Most of them, like 90% of the developers or protocols developing for that environment, were really, really left in the dark and closed shop. The other ones were multi-chain, so they can kind of port out to multiple different ecosystems and still continue to work and build, and they're still charging ahead. It's very interesting. You have to leave a little bit of these doors, secondary and tertiary doors, open so that you can play, test, and innovate beyond it. So take a lesson.
It's interesting. I mean, we're going to get into more of the technology tomorrow. We're hosting a Twitter Spaces, but yesterday we announced a partnership with Pog. If you remember the old milk cap bottle game, it's
wow, yeah. Oh,
and they have they're awesome. The CEO, Kyler, is so inspiring, brilliant, interesting background building Google Cloud, working at really amazing companies, helping build Unity. And I've been really inspired working with him, but he's really, I've been in this space a year and some change now. And like we've said, we are always learning, but he's taught me a lot about interoperability. Like I understand it, but he's like put it together where it makes sense, and I can see it right in front of me now with Pogs. So they have built on Solana. They have a game on Solana. They have NFTs on Ethereum. You know, they've done a lot in this space already, but because it's fast transactions and quick, fast transactions, but also high volume of transaction, the gas fees on other platforms just haven't worked out. And so they're building a Theta subchain, which positions them as powerful as a layer one. So the way that our infrastructure is built, when you build a subchain, other blockchains, it would be a layer two. It's actually, you're as powerful as a layer one. And so they are launching a subchain. They will have a token. I won't share dates and times because that's something we take seriously and like to under promise, over deliver. But Theta, essentially, the way I kind of envision, the way I'm learning about this technology interoperability, is Theta's subchain. They're calling it the Pog chain. That is their layer one. That's their home base. So as they may partner with another company or a brand that is working on there's bridges and ways to work together, but Theta's the home base. And people ask us all the time, like, are you competitive? And sure, at this stage of growth of the market, like it is good to be competitive. But, World of Women is a partner of ours and they use this for our video infrastructure. And they're on Ethereum. We all know that. And we're not trying to take them away from them. That would be silly. That would be unethical for me to pressure them even, right? But we were able to authenticate their NFTs to unlock a live event of their award show so that only community members could access that event. It's a beautiful way that we can work together and coexist, where the ships, like I said earlier, I forget if it was while we were recording or beforehand, but the ships rise together in this space and companies can operate as they see fit without having forced relationships, I guess is my point.
Yeah, I love it all. And, now it's, you got another fan in your corner.
Likewise.
So just for our listeners, and just to bring it back into a little bit of Theta land here.
Sure.
Well, it's all Theta land, but illustrate the benefits just of like for the end user and the business side.
Sure. Such a loaded question, but
it's loaded. I know.
Loaded, but just know that I'm going to answer in a few specific paths.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Rather than all encompassing and staying vague. But, being proof of stake, it's better for gas fees, it's better for engagement, and focused on media and entertainment. Engagement is everything, like we've talked about. And so you want as much engagement as possible. So that has to be with proof of stake. So on the infrastructure side, it's about the fast transaction times that are absolutely critical for video experiences for sure, other media as well. And then also the gas fees or lack thereof gas fees, right? The fact that it's permissionless and that, there's that avenue that I could get into. But what I'll say on more the consumer side that I think a lot of people are curious about and then we can all relate to is right now we're a Web3 company, but we help companies lean in and we have a lot of Web 2.5 solutions. So for instance, we have Theta Drop, our NFT marketplace, and that's to onboard people into Web3 and blockchain. And we have a custodial wallet. So you don't have to decode a bomb and remember your passphrase and all of these things. You log in with, 2FA, of course, but you log in with your email and password and, we accept credit cards. And so I think that's so critical at this stage for both businesses and consumers in this space that I'm really proud of and that I think just are like table stakes in my opinion, but unfortunately it's not. It's like you're either Web3 and, it's like we're helping the people who are curious and might want to buy a Steve McQueen NFT or a Metacan video pass or a POG collection to play a game, we can help those communities recruit their friends and family by being like, great, all you need to do is a credit card. They can help shepherd in those users. We can help. It's easier. So I think that's like a huge element that both plays on the business side because it enables us to work with companies, very traditional companies like Fremantle with American Idol and Price is Right. And the fact that we offer managed services around that is very critical. So these companies can come to us with their brands. They know their audience the best, and then we get to teach them and shepherd their way into Web3 too, and make them feel empowered, not mystified by this, right? And that, that's like one of my favorite stories is Fremantle now has a Web3 team, and it's the team that we worked with, and they are brilliant. And they're like, oh, we're no Web3 experts. I was like, nobody is, but at your company, you definitely are. And I'm really proud that it was our team and managed services that, gave them that expertise to now be that influential at their company. But so I think, we can even go back to the question, but those are like really specific things that I think that Theta's doing very well that are tangible to everybody today. And then, of course, there's more infrastructure side of things, but that's can be very technical and to some abstract. So I want to paint a specific picture for you.
No, that Andrea, that was great. And for on the business side, the partnership side, you're offering, the edge network,
Right.
Perhaps a faster, cheaper way to serve videos. On the consumer side, you're
And more secure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's security. You're also on the consumer and IP and
Right.
rights management and all the bells and whistles that go with that baked in, which is a beautiful thing. So there's a lot going on with Theta. And then on the consumer side, it really is about, you may be a creator, you may be just a consumer, you might be, whatever you're doing. There's multiple ways for you to kind of interact with brands now.
Yes.
In a trusted, secure way, in a more intimate way as well,
Right.
and a more tailored way, which gives the business more marketing leverage.
Exactly. Yep.
Not just creatively, but from a data and analytics standpoint as well.
Yep,
So,
absolutely. And truly, and the thing with NFTs specifically is you can build on them, right? So,
Yeah.
it's like as every NFT project, in my opinion, is a small business, or at least starts as a small business, if not more. And it's up to you as the issuer to decide how you want to build with it. If, you want to team up with another collection or community to then unlock XYZ or airdrop this or that, but you can start small and just have it be about your fan base. And then you can start adding value as you go and incentivizing behavior as you go. But the baseline of that smart contract is there where you own the relationship, and it's up to you to add value and build on that.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, is sometimes people overlook is the idea that NFTs can be, to your point, be built on, added to.
Yes.
Right. So it becomes, and there's I would love to have this conversation with you probably another time is, I hate websites. What's the alternative?
Uh-huh.
Well, now I have a wallet. And
Right.
now I have I downloaded something from Artifact, and it's a Nike collectible, and it's a one-off, and it cost me a fortune, whatever it is. But I can still get information. I can get all the meta information about that particular product. I can now understand sports stars that may be using that. I could get trading cards from those sports cards. It's just the ripple effect from a marketing perspective is profound.
Yeah.
And the tools, what gets me excited is go to a sporting event and you do have the Nike thing, and maybe that night is sponsored by Nike.
It's like Amex, right?
Yeah. It's the Amex. Exactly. It's the Amex model. I did tons of work with Amex, so I know their whole model inside and out.
Interesting.
It's fantastic. They were kings of taking a product and making events around them, or vice versa.
Right.
So now you enter the arena and instantly there's a game for you to play. And then the results are showed on the Jumbotron because
Right.
you and 5,000 or 1,000 other users out there or in the stadium are participating, and you walk away with something.
And
Everyone
even-
walks away with something.
and you think of even just the psychological connection that it makes is stickier to the brand or the consumer. Like I remember going to a Warriors game and Amex card holders. My friend had one. We got to meet one of the previous, I think it was Jason Richardson, if I'm remembering correctly. But I was so excited to meet him, and he was like meeting all these kids, and I was like the adult. I had him sign my arm. I was like so excited, and it was like the best game ever because that's how the game started. Is I got to meet with him and chat with him, and then it's like that was an experience. So it tapped into a side of me than just like being nobody. I felt like somebody, and it was a stickier brand experience for me overall that whole evening. I was like all in. I mean, I'm already a Warriors fan, but it was like, it solidifies that.
Membership. That's what it is.
Definitely.
It's, an unspoken membership, really. And it's very interesting since we're talking about NFTs, there's been, in the news, and I'm sure, we're all hearing, the NFT markets are sluggish and whatnot,
Right.
or just completely, bottoming out. And I don't think they're bottoming out. I think people are just, they're onto the new things. But what these folks need to realize is, or the publishers of these NFTs is, you could still keep, like people are they're not throwing them away.
Yes.
It costs them a small fortune for some of them. But you can add value on top of that and rekindle that relationship.
This is what I'm so excited for. I think it will be obvious in the next bull run. But like I communicated this to the community recently, and it seemed like it really resonated where I'm like, we have a really cool community-driven podcast. There's a NFT community called the Secret Pineapple Society. It's kind of like our version of Bored Apes Club, but there's like more utility. And they have a podcast, and I love these guys. And they started the podcast to hold accountability to Theta and our projects and NFTs. And it was started as a joke of like, it was a feature release that we said would be ready by, let's say, like, July 1st, and it was July 10th. And so they started I'm paraphrasing totally, but they're like, it's been 9 days since Theta said they'd deliver XYZ. And now they're like NFT gurus. I call them NFT nerds. And I say that to their face so I can say it. But they are it's awesome. They're holding people accountable for these projects. But what I talk to them about is like, the fact that there was a project and that I own this NFT now, it could go dark for a while, or this startup could go cold for a while, or whatever it is. But it's not to say that in 2 years when they have funds to do this or that, or maybe somebody else acquires that business, like that NFT all of a sudden is pumped with value. I don't know. It's just interesting. Something we talk about a lot, like the Metacan pass we sold. We, as we continue on with other film and movie projects, we encourage our partners to say, oh, do you want to airdrop this pass, for a premiere or something? Can we airdrop it to the Metacan holders? And that's something that then the Metacan holders, they weren't expecting any of that. And like, oh, cool. Because I got into this early on, like I now get this movie pass. And like, I'm really encouraging that logic on the business side more, where people don't feel overly committed and that they always can go back and build on what's already there. And I don't want to imply hold on to things and hope for things to happen, because that's not what I'm saying. But like, I have things in my wallet that I won't get rid of, like one of my American Idol ones, because I'm excited for what potentially American Idol will do in the future, because I have the winner. So I want to see, maybe in 5 years he's at Madison Square Garden and he sells tickets and I get first access because he can tap into his OG card holders. It's like those things I daydream about. I'm not saying that's happening for the record, but that can happen.
Yeah, it's a continual stream, whether it's full on or, to your point, intermittent, because of VC funds drying up. Basically, that's kind of what's happening these days.
Yeah.
And then you rekindle it back, down the road a year or two from now.
Right. And think that's why I was bringing up this Pinecast. I love that these guys hold these projects and creators accountable, because it's good to keep the pressure on, keep these companies or projects honest. But also then it's a reason to say, hey, people are still asking, like, people care, people want this. And then we can go back and give the community what they want. So they represent a voice, but it's good that we keep these projects accountable, especially in the nature of the space today, and people who do rug pull and the fraud that does inevitably happen on blockchain at this stage. Like, I love to see that communities are still coming together regardless of status of project, and they put pressure on companies and artists to continue to add value or get creative.
Yeah. Awesome. And I had the opportunity to kind of dabble with Theta TV, which is really cool. Actually, there's some really good stuff flowing in there. And the one thing that I really loved, and you hit on it earlier on in the podcast, is the idea of like a Twitch-like experience, which I really like. And I want to see that come to regular, broadcast television and the streaming networks. Like, why aren't they doing that? I want to see what people are saying about this and just quickly, easily toggle on and off, and maybe just have, text to speech type of interaction through my phone or something like that with my TV. I really like that. I really enjoyed it. I think it'll foster a lot of engagement. If I could do that with a streaming podcast like this, like a Twitch, but not on Twitch,
right?
I'm interested.
Yeah, it is cool. We're seeing more of them pop up. That was what we started as a company, was that Theta TV solution. It was called Sliver TV.
Sliver.
Then, so we keep the lights on as like a POC to show what we can build on Theta. But I'm looking for the companies who are going to build the next Twitch on Web3 and on Theta, or Snapchat, or the next Netflix. Like, while I work with these existing companies and enterprise companies, I also focus a lot too on these Web3 native companies that are going to be the next. I don't know. I'm so excited to see whatever. I'm like such a nerd. I'm the first to download all these apps anyways.
Yeah, I guess a part of it is being part of the new innovation, Web3 innovation companies, but also help to shepherd,
yes, for sure,
the OG kind of streaming networks and other networks. You guys partner with like Lionsgate, MGM, NASA. That's pretty cool stuff. It's a really great start.
Yeah, we have a really good list of investors and advisors. It's nice.
Yeah, your advisors are from Vimeo and all over the place. Like where else? Let me see. Salesforce,
one of the founders
Samsung,
of Twitch and YouTube, and one of my friends, Tad Rowe. He's had a product at Pluto TV. He actually brought online video to TMZ. That's how I met him back when I was at Kaltura. It's like really cool advisors that are very inspiring, the investors. But one of the questions I had when I was onboarding, I was a little fearful of, was like, okay, how difficult is it to like get these meetings? How is this going to be like a pain in the ass? Am I going to be cold calling and really like, just how resilient am I going to have to be to just get these initial meetings? And I'm really lucky because Theta's had so much success and these great advisors and great investors that I don't want to say it's easy, but it's very organic, and I have plenty of work to do without trying to convince somebody to get on the phone. I don't need to waste my time, an uphill battle. There's people I have to convince or demystify with, but like those are people who are taking meetings and at least somewhat open-minded. And it's not as much as what I anticipated or was fearful of, where I'm going to have to really hit a lot of dead ends or doors slammed in my face. Like, luckily, I have not had one door slammed in my face, only semi-slammed, and then it ended with the best, most successful outcome of the meeting. They said, don't worry. I agree. JPEGs are stupid. Don't worry.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's fun, though.
Yeah, but, you bring up a really good point. When I did spent a lot of time at Viacom and Nickelodeon.
Cool.
The group itself moved pretty swiftly, and we were able to do some really interesting things with gaming and other communications and design. but it's almost like a second job, being able to negotiate top tier management or executives
Oh, yeah.
to get decisions or funding within the organization.
Oh, this is
So,
like what
yeah.
makes me tick. I'm obsessed with the way corporations work. I don't want to say politics because that's almost distracting, but like operations.
Operations.
I love a good operation. In fact, fun fact about me that is very embarrassing, but I don't care, is my dream job is to be head of TSA. Like, I'm obsessed with TSA. I enjoy going through TSA security. I'm like enamored, but nothing pisses me off more than a bad TSA experience when it's poorly run. But I just like the magnitude of the operation, that or the postal service. I'm obsessed with the postal service. Like,
All right,
how things get done and massive operations. Like, it's so fascinating to me, where I'm just like, I just love it. And so when you think of a corporation, it's the same kind of thing because I've worked for the billionaires who buy these companies, whatever, like to every stage I've worked my way up, and you see it and it's like, oh, okay, it's like a puzzle. Let's be resourceful. How can we influence change? And I take kind of like a tentacle approach, where if I'm meeting with the C-suite, I'm meeting with all the lower level employees that I know in my network and can get meetings with. Whether or not I even tell each other that is a whole other conversation, but I'm going to learn the day to day. It's going to help me with that conversation, and vice versa. You play like quarterback between these groups. That's how you do it.
Yeah. It can be challenging,
Totally.
but there are better ways for sure. Absolutely. And we're wrapping up a little bit. I think we got to wrap up a little bit.
Yes.
But what for our audience, what can we expect from Theta? Anything you can kind of give us a little, maybe leak out a little bit, or just on the next 6 months roadmap, or
I mentioned our partner POG. That type of partnership is something I'm trying to repeat often. So those partnerships I'm always working on. Some move faster than others. Some want to be public facing and announce the partnership. Some don't. So that will continue to happen. I think, these NFT projects are really a strategy to land and expand these corporate relationships. So, focusing on interesting NFT projects that are utility driven first and foremost. Because, if there's utility, then it's probably using infrastructure, which means you're using more than just our NFTs. So I don't know. It's a whole mix of things that you'll see on the consumer side, where things you can experience. And then there's a lot of exciting B2B stuff that I'm working on that will transform the internet.
Now, you mentioned a Twitter Spaces that's coming up.
It's tomorrow, so I'm sure it's that will eclipse, but you can listen to the recording. We have ThetaCon, actually, is a community-driven event on the first weekend of November in Austin. So that's really exciting. You can watch virtually or you can attend, but it's put on by the community for the community. We usually just show up and support, and I'll speak if they want me to. That's a great public-facing event. And then I'm at conferences here and there, but the best way I think to keep in touch is usually on Twitter, either my account or the Theta Network account is the best way to kind of keep the pulse on what's happening.
Awesome. And, for our viewers, Theta has a pretty robust community. There's a lot of chatter going on, a lot of interesting ideas.
Like I said, there's a podcast, a Pinecast.
You guys are in it to win it, and you're communicating in the right ways, through media.
I appreciate that. We're doing the best we can as a small company. It's a balance act. I interrupt you just because there's so much more, communication we could do, but part of my job is to make sure that our team stays focused on the infrastructure and the building, and I have to do the same. I want to be as community facing as I can, but at the end of the day, I'm business development, not community manager. And I have to delegate my time and resources appropriately. But I appreciate that you think that we communicate well. That's great. I always think there's areas for improvement.
No, every organization has room
Right.
for improvement. And I say it from a guy that does pretty much a lot of things. almost every, I can pretty much handle every operations in my
Cool.
company, but that doesn't mean I want to. Just to your point, as far as being community manager, that is a full-time 24/7 job, so very
Luckily we have,
interesting.
I was going to say, shout out to our community manager, Genion. He's kind of was self-appointed by the community, and now we formalized that role for him. But I was just going to say, what I'm very grateful for within the Theta community is there's a lot of, unofficial community mods and people doing that work and evangelizing and communicating, which is really, I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, sometimes you don't need a giant team. You need the right team.
Yeah, that's preach. Good job. Yes, I agree.
So, Andrea, thank you so much for being with us. Personally, I would love to continue more dialogue because
we're connected on LinkedIn. I'm glad.
Yeah, you go well beyond business development and even the technology stuff into lots of areas that I'm interested in. Our audiences, it's fun conversations, but it's thought provoking, and it's important conversations because this is the way people are going to understand that there is a different way. Correct. So we really appreciate your time. I want you back. And where can our viewers get you? ThetaNetwork.org. And then for me, I'm W3 Andrea on Twitter and Instagram. I'm most active on Twitter. I talk about blockchain, media and entertainment, plants, as you can tell from my background, and sports, but mostly Theta stuff. So you can follow me there, and always happy to hear questions and have conversations there. Well, I'm definitely going to hit you up,
cool.
even on the plant one, because I need some help with my.
That's what my partner has, a plant business I stepped away from, so I just help him in my free time, the little that I have. But literally, his business is set up to help people fix plants, help plants design their space, everything. So awesome. Definitely send it my way.
I'm the guy that's trying to perennially kind of grow care for or grow palm trees in the Northeast. So it's challenging.
Palm trees are, no joke. I mean, talk about good business. Palm tree business is a lucrative business.
I know. They're expensive.
Yeah.
So thank you so much again.
Thank you, Rich.
And thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll see you the next time.
Awesome. Thanks.